the debt ceiling. I can't imagine anybody ever even thinking of using the debt ceiling as a negotiating wedge. When I first came into office, I asked about the debt ceiling, and I understand debt ceilings, and I certainly understand the highest rated credit ever in history and a debt ceiling. And I said, I remember to Senator Schumer and to Nancy Pelosi, would anybody ever use that to negotiate with? They said, absolutely not. That's a sacred element of our country. They can't use the debt ceiling to negotiate. And don't forget, President Obama, during his 8 years, he doubled the debt. You take every president prior to President Obama, he then took it and doubled the debt, over $10 trillion. 10 trillion with a T, not a B, not a million, not a billion. President Obama put $10 trillion. It doubled the debt. It was at 10, it went to 20, went to even above 20. And some of it is attributed to him, even that I assume. So when they start talking about using the debt ceiling as a wedge to negotiate for things that they want, they have told me very strongly they would never use that. That's a very, very sacred thing in our country, debt ceiling. We can never play with it. So I would have to assume we're in great shape. But just remember also, the previous administration doubled the debt in our country. You take all of the presidents that came before, doubled the debt from there. It's a pretty big statement. And certainly it's a big statement to be talking about, for that party to be talking about using the debt ceiling. And I don't think they are. It's been mentioned, but I don't think they are. I don't think anybody would want to.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And you know I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And guys, that video from Trump was July 19, 2019. And we know what happened about 8-9 months later. Congress and the Fed went on a spending spree, printing 20% of all money in existence. And I think the debt now is up to like 30 trillion. Not with a B, with a T. So it doesn't matter who your president is, doesn't matter who's in Congress, the NWO is going to move forward with their agendas. And I told you the beginning of last year, the debt crisis would be a topic in 2023. So this summer, going into the third quarter, there's definitely going to be a crisis centered around the debt ceiling. Whether they get it passed or not, we know they're going to use that as a tool, as a distraction, so they can move forward to the fourth industrial revolution. Guys, remember, the fourth industrial revolution is the goal. They're going to set up distractions so the masses are looking one way and they're moving in another direction. And the only way to move to the fourth industrial revolution means that you have to destroy the legacy market and the U.S. dollar. And we see those wheels already in motion. That's the reason why they printed all this money, to put pain on the emerging markets. Now the emerging markets have an excuse to get off the U.S. dollar. And we know China and Russia have been planning this since 2014 and earlier. But now we see the other BRICS nations. We see Saudi Arabia, also Israel, investing in the yuan. And the only reason why the yuan has an opportunity to take over the US dollar is because it's going to be digital. That means you can move money cheaper and faster. And when you're talking about moving trillions and trillions of dollars with your trading partners, that's all that matters. And we know how important the Belt and Road is going to be. So guys, I know it's Sunday. I know a lot of you are watching a game or watching your TV show. But don't forget to get into the lab, because you do not want to be on the wrong side of history. And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you, because he knows when it comes to the New World Order, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
Compression that we're experiencing in the U.S. market that should continue as long as we're on a path to rising real interest rates. After all, everything is different now. The era of free money is over, and we don't have a Fed put any longer, nor do we have other central banks. They are reducing their balance sheets. They're taking liquidity out of the market. And fiscal spending is very much constrained by inflation. In fact, they're both monetary and fiscal are constrained by inflation. And as a result, now it's just all we have is earnings. The liquidity part of the propellant to markets is likely to be very muted for many years.
Yeah, David, I'd add to put on the table the risk of the debt ceiling. If there is an individual member of the House that can call for a speaker vote anytime they want, and if there is a tie to the debt ceiling in this agreement that's being made to potentially make Kevin McCarthy the speaker, that is going to significantly increase the risk around that. The key will be, could the Democrats get the Republicans from Democratic-leaning districts to go along with them to pass the debt ceiling expansion, which is really what the American public wants.
Sarah, we've all seen any number of times that the debt ceiling has been an issue. One time it actually affected the credit of the United States government. It usually has gone away. Does it factor into your investment decisions at this point at all, the risk on the debt ceiling?
Well, certainly, because the risk-free rate is critical when doing valuation work, because after all the stock is the present value of all the cash it can generate into perpetuity, discounted by this discount rate, where the risk-free rate or the government bond yield is essential to that. So yes, as government bond yields rises, that is going to cause us to have to pay, be much more stingy in terms of what we pay for stocks. So it's super important.
This is kind of a proof of concept for a small handful of conservatives to provoke a crisis that most House Republicans can see is counterproductive and self-destructive. And I think that we're going to see something similar in the middle of the year. So the debt ceiling showdown that I expect in the middle of the year, we're going to hit the debt ceiling again, probably sometime late in Q1. Treasury is going to run out of so-called extraordinary measures to keep from breaching the debt ceiling in the middle of the year in late Q2 or early Q3. And I think that we're going to have a big, protracted 2011 style showdown on the debt ceiling this year, because House Republicans are going to be really apprehensive about providing the votes to fix that. And so, again, I think this looks much more like 2011 when the U.S. got its credit rating downgraded than it looks like some of the more performative fights of recent years. And I think that when you look at this speaker showdown,
a lot of solvency risks is triggered by a liquidity risk. So when you strengthen the dollar, you actually erode the purchasing power, the buyer's purchasing power of a lot of the other countries whose currencies are depreciating. But it's also the dominant currency for global funding. And to the extent that a lot of countries, particularly emerging market countries, they finance themselves in dollar, you essentially make the cost of dollar borrowing more expensive.
Some economists also believe that a stronger dollar has allowed America's global GDP and trading power to go above and beyond the levels it would otherwise have reached. This has led to a growing resentment over the dollar's dominance and led to many countries looking for alternatives.
But we are beginning to see countries trying to break free from the grip of the dollar. And so China has set up the CIPS, the cross-border interbank payment system, which could in principle allow China to start conducting payment transactions with other countries, including rivals of the US, such as Russia, but also potentially allies of the US, such as the European countries, who are also frustrated about dollar dominance.
Quite remarkably in China, if you look at the amount of goods trade denominated in renminbi, it actually went up quite a bit. And this is in a backdrop where the dollar was strengthening and renminbi, for the most part, actually depreciated. And yet, there's a greater share of trade settlement. There's still some institutional deficiencies in terms of investor protections in China, given what we've seen with what happened with tech and property sectors. But I think that's the direction China will want to go, to put renminbi forward as an alternative.
The economy now accounts for about a quarter of global GDP, down from 30% in 2000. The emergence of digital currencies could play a significant role in reducing the reliance on the dollar. These new technologies have made international payments, which were often slow and expensive, much easier, and alleviates frictions that came with trading in multiple currencies.
We've seen digital payments proliferate in developing countries, but also fintech provides a way of providing very basic banking products and services for managing credit, risk, savings, even to low-income households at broad scale. We can also think about fintech reducing the constraints on international payments. But the reality right now is that it's going to require fundamental reforms at the country level, but also at the international level to break free of the grip of the dollar.
We're going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
This effort. And China has big plans for this. They intend to seed their digital yuan into the global environment by giving it away to visitors at next winter's Olympics. When they arrive at the airport, they're going to get yuan digital wallets. They're going to receive digital yuan. They're going to use it throughout their visits to Beijing, and then they're going to take it back to their home countries. They see this as a huge advantage. Why? Because who controls the underlying protocols, who controls the underlying standards of the future of money will control the future of money.
Most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids' books. You know I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York from COVID-33. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.